One, two, three. Hey, what's up, Roberto? Thank you for joining me today on this Solo Journey podcast here virtually. How is class going for you?
That's great. Thank you for having me here. It's like I was excited to hear about you wanted to do this, and loving the class right now. It's summer school is no joke, but it's going by really quick. How's your class going?
Yeah, I lucked out, I guess if you could say. I have Dr. Barsh, so I'm sure he's gonna get a kick of seeing you on screen.
Guys
Um,
are so lucky just to have Dr. Barsh. My God,
I'll leave it
our
as
teachers don't have as many tabs as he does.
yeah, I'll leave it as a surprise when he sees this podcast. Hopefully, he'll be surprised. But yeah, today we're here. We're gonna discuss some questions, kind of on our soul of teaching. It's kind of good. Little background: me and Roberto, we met up here at APU. We're both military veterans. He did his time in the Marine Corps. I did my time in the Navy. But we still have same experiences growing up here. Well, he was born in Mexico, but being Latino males and going in as teacher candidates, I think it's kind of cool, and I naturally gravitated towards him. So real quick, Roberto, can you tell me a little bit about why you decided to become a teacher?
You got a couple hours, but no, let's make this short. This is like a dream of mine. I mean, realistically, is like I wanted to be a teacher growing up. Even since kindergarten, my kindergarten teacher really made an impact on me, and then from there, a lot of other teachers did too. And I was on my path of it, but circumstance changes. I ended up joining the military. The military was a great experience for me, and then becoming financially stable allowed me to follow my dreams. And I said, what better dream to follow than to become a teacher the whole time period. So teaching has been my goal since I was when I started my education. So I love learning. So ever since then, I've never stopped going to school.
That's awesome. For me, a little different. I'm a career. I did 23 years in the Navy. So as I started, when I became really a staff NCO, your roles kind of shift from being like the technical expert doing all the work to more managerial and mentorship. And I think that's what I enjoyed most. I know when I wanted to retire, I wanted to do something meaningful. I had a couple of job offers like managerial, running a clinic, things like that. But I wanted something a little bit more that I could have an impact, especially in my community. And it made me think a lot about my childhood growing up and the teachers that I had or wish I had, and how I didn't have much representation in that. So that's what's kind of cool about both me and you. We both kind of represent the community we want to work in here in Riverside, Southern Riverside County. So and also, I come from some family of educators. My sister, you may not know, she's a teacher in Vegas, and my wife, you've met her. She teaches. She's been teaching for 20 years, so kind of naturally lined up, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, for my side is like my parents are both they are immigrants. They came here like they both have a sixth grade education, so they don't have it. I have a family. My dad is the oldest of 11. None of them have gone to college, and then their kids, same thing. I think maybe like a handful of us went to college, let alone go towards the masters. I think it's very limited in my personal family. I'm the only one that's gone to college. So right now I'm pushing my both kids to go to college as well too. So it's different, and especially seeing in the education field that it's a majority of females. And like for you to see another male in a classroom, it's like wow, like there's another guy in here. So I'm not the only I'm the only guy here. Is like most of the time it's like 5 to 10% male in there. And then when you go to the classrooms as well too, they even say the same thing. It's like there's not a lot of males in there. So I'm glad to see another one, not only as a male but as a military veteran, because you know what harsh discipline is, but you also know how to finesse it. You can be tactful as well too. So that's one of the good things about it.
Yeah, you brought up a couple of good points there. If you don't mind, like just to talk back towards it. I know Dr. Bart shared with us all personally that he didn't grow up with a father in his home, and I didn't really have a stable male role model. I grew up with an alcoholic stepfather, so that is a big aspect of our community, having a positive role model. And I think that that's going to be towards our advantage, because we know that there are a lot of single parents in our community that could use that. Cool. You want to go on and move on to the next question?
Of course. Let's see, what does it say? So resilience may be directed as our attempt to deal with a lack of connection, community, or wholeness. Can you recall a time in your educational experience where it required you to demonstrate resilience? And how did you manage to remain silent? See, on this one, I think I'm a little backwards on this one because ethically and morally speaking, like if I see something wrong, well, military stuff, you see something, say something kind of thing. You do say something, but you do have to be tactful in a certain way. Like we know how to maintain, silent, but in becoming resilient in the matter, like you can't, you got to pick your battles in that sense. So you do that. I mean, going in classes, going and stuff like that, you see something that's wrong, and you see teachers just kind of like glaze over it because it's not worth it. And then they have a great point because it does disrupt the classroom in a whole. And I'm learning that as we go through these classes, how something goes bad, you just don't pay attention to it, and you've seen it in all of the APU classrooms. Some of the instructors, something goes wrong, and you learn from that. And what a better teacher than Barsh when he does that. It's like, and you learn from that, and we appreciate it because sometimes things don't go as planned. Like when his internet went down, guess what? He didn't freak out. He didn't do anything. He just adjusted, and that right there was the biggest teaching moment in a lot of the APU classrooms because you will come up with that, and that becomes to makes you resilient. It's like don't stress it, just go along with it.
Something that we kind of talked a little bit offline before we started the podcast is we're a little older than our cohorts and our peers, so we have a little bit more experience. But what I chuckle is the word resiliency. Like I really didn't learn this word or heard it maybe about 5 years ago. Growing up in the military, we probably heard it as suck it up, suck it up, buttercup. And we definitely been put in some roles. I know we both had deployments in Iraq and Afghanistan, and there's no place that you're going to get more resilience than being overseas away from your family, embracing the suck if you would. And not everybody can handle it. It is stressful, and how you face those challenges. But I think those are both traits that we could transfer to the classroom, specifically with some of the pedagogies and the curriculum stuff we've been talking about, persevering, not
Mm-hmm.
giving up, failure, you're not going to get it the first time.
Yeah.
Uh, so those are pretty good. Kind of going back to that, staying on the topic of resiliency, like how are some other ways that you think you may exercise resiliency in your classroom and maybe with staff or administrators in your school?
I think that just by setting the example and making sure that you having that mentor idea, like when you think of something when you're in a classroom and you want to show resilience, show that it doesn't bother you when something bad happens, you take it and you just go along with it. I mean, not everything's going to be rainbows and unicorns, so you have to go with it. And then if you set that example for those students will eat that up. They love the structure. They feed on the role model. They love mentorship. So once you create that and you set that example for them, that creates a better student for later on. Because if they see you and you're angry or you're frustrated or they're going to be angry or frustrated because that's what they think you're supposed to do. But if you show resilience and you show that example of a better human, that's what you're going to promote for the students, and it's a great thing that we're beginning at these classes.
Yeah, you bring up good points. Something else I would kind of like to bring up is how I don't really want to get stuck in the kind of the same old system model of the rote memorization, standards. We're learning all these scientific proven methods that work for students, by like problem-based learning, having them use their different learning styles, all those things that we learn, and then we learn those things and we think it, but we're both realists that when it comes to the classroom, then it may all change when you get punched in the mouth, just like Mike Tyson says, because you're worried about making the standards. But I don't want to get I really want to be cognizant of that, be resilient, and try to stay true to what I'm learning and what I'm preaching about. How I want to design lessons for all students.
One of the greatest things that happened to me, it just happened to me yesterday. I had to do a Socratic seminar for the 503. I was doing it on Robert Owens, and we get in our breakout rooms, and you're supposed to make sure that the class, the students, ask the questions, and you're prepared. You already done the classes, Socratic seminar. I did my lesson plans. I did everything. I know what I'm doing. But we get to the classroom, and everybody's quiet, and you're like, how do I get these students to? You're there, and you're dealing with peers, and some are trying to get involved, and you don't. So you have to adjust, and that's exactly what I did. I adjusted. I I twisted a little bit from Socratic to question answer, direct learning, and using all the lesson plans the lesson styles that we learned, was able to go back into it, but I had to engage them first, get the student engagement, get the classroom evaluated. So everything worked out really good because the models that I've had, they teach you one thing and said, if this doesn't work, you know, adapt, differentiate. How do you engage them? And then going that in the back of my head, that helped a lot. So you have to be resilient, because when you get in there, you're like, I have to do Socratic, and it doesn't work. Like, what do you do now? Like, no, I just went back to my learning, and muscle memory, boom, and that worked. And that's great, because you do have to adjust, and you do have to there. And hopefully you get to the end result. And sure enough, we did. We were able to do the Socratic seminar, and we had a great time, and everybody loved it. So I was very happy about it.
That's awesome. Yeah, one of the things that I really like about you is that you're very optimistic. You're happy going. For me personally, one of my pet peeves is like people that are just, you would call them like Debbie Downers, or just look at all the flaws. This is the way we've done it all the time. And so I think that's going to be one of my other biggest challenges, where I'm going to have to stay resilient, you know, try to lead by example, because in reality, even though we are older, we're still going to be rookies, first year teachers. We still going to have a learning curve. So we got to find that balance of voicing our opinion and then sitting back and listening and absorbing everything. So, but I'm really excited to hear, about your teaching career, because I know how you're just a happy go getting person, and I know the kids are going to love you.
Most of the time, happy.
I think we've kind of finished it up. We got maybe one more question. Maybe we want to talk about the philosophers or your educational philosophy, and maybe how it's going to impact your career. And if there's,
Yes, I did mine on I think in the beginning of the A and B, I did a little bit of Jefferson. I love that Jefferson was an advocate for education. I love that he was a book guy. Oh, that right there automatically just made me fall in love with him, because he is a book guy. He loves books. He created a library for the students. And I myself has always loved books. I am an online bookseller. I love books so much that that's part of my job too. So, and then you have like the Gandhi era, and then you have stuff. And it's just recently just finding out about Owens. Same thing about the early education. I'm a big advocate. I'm like early education. I think everybody should be educated as soon as they can, from the age as soon as they're born, if they can. From all these little things. So I love that a lot of these philosophers had the same idea, and how the education back then, transformed the day and age today. It really did make an impact. And some ideas weren't as well, but they did have that, the great platforms for them, from Horace Mann to Plato, Aristotle. All these great philosophers had the idea, and this is what we have today. And because of them, we are in a good educational society, that we're higher level than that.
yes, we're definitely kind of blessed, if you would, or lucky because of where we've been with the access to education. Some of the things that I struggle with is just knowing the time frame that these philosophers were in back then. Like, even Jefferson, even though he had a huge impact, he only believed that for like white males that had privilege and stuff. He didn't believe, other races were intellectually enough. But we know he progressed. But if you, for me, the one I connected with is, you go further down in chapter 25, is Pablo Freire. He's the Brazilian, and he came up with this critical thinking pedagogy, or the pedagogy of the press, where he challenged this kind of the school system we have right now about like where the teacher just gives you all the information, you're supposed to absorb it, where the best way to learn is by questioning and asking and working through it and not having the teacher be the answer. The other thing I connected with him is because he grew up during the Great Depression, so he experienced poverty. They mentioned a lot in all the research is which hunger basically. So he didn't even have time to read or learn because he was just hungry all the time. He was just trying to survive. But I found his work, but I definitely used Jefferson, and the other philosopher I used was Aquinas, Thomas Aquinas, the friar, the priest. And what I liked about him is because this guy was smart enough to use his leverage his his I guess his power or his holdings in the church to balance science and reasoning to kind of move forward. So, but yeah, all these philosophers, pretty cool learning about them.
I had a lot of fun. This class is a lot of fun. I mean, we have like Aquinas, the man of reason. It makes me realize, because of him, we do have this, and it's awesome. This class gives you a lot of good philosophers and a lot of good things. And a lot of people that you've already read upon from everybody. It's like you see them and you get a good idea, but when you peel the onion, peel back, you see more in depth in there and how the education, what they did for education. And before this, I think I only knew about Horace Mann and Plato. That was it. Read the Republic and read, Horace Mann's. That was it. I was like, but now you're expanded to all this other knowledge, which is amazing.
And what I find ironic too is like even in the book we're reading, there's not a lot of representation of women philosophies in education. But now,
Yeah.
like they dominate. I don't want to say dominate, but they're just the majority in the schools. Females educated. So imagine the impact they could have had with our education system. If they were allowed more to be participate or be in charge of it, then maybe we wouldn't be so far back. Where we are now.
Evolution.
Yeah.
We've progressed, like you said. So good thing that we have progressed. Otherwise, we've been back in the Stone Ages.
All right, man. I think we kind of covered it. Hopefully we could do this again. I know there's another assignment coming up. We could have a second podcast. But thank you again for joining me.
For having me.
And stop recording here.
All right. See you later.
There you go.